That's the ending of The Nearness of You, a tune by the great songwriter Hoagy Carmichael. It's a tune I'm familiar with, but I had never really learned it. And some of you have been asking about learning tunes. So in this video, I'm going to take you through the process of how I learned it and what I do to make sure that it sticks. I'm talking about tunes that I'm adding to my repertoire. The process is different if I'm learning a tune for a one-off gig. Now, I learned Nearness of You a few days ago and then played it on a gig just the other night. So how did I do that? Well, mainly by ear. This is how pros learn tunes, and you can do it too. So our first step is pick a tune. Usually it's because I heard someone play it, or sometimes it just pops into my head. In this case, I heard a recording of someone playing Nearness of You and decided it would be a good tune to play at my next gig. So when you're picking a tune, make sure that it's within your ability. Tunes that are mainly in one key are the easiest. And beware of the bridge, as that's where modulations often occur. For example, the A section of Have You Met Miss Jones is pretty easy, but the B section's a bear. And so our first step is to learn the song. Now, don't open the fake book. We're going to do this by ear. Now, as I said, I was pretty familiar with this tune, but I had to see if I really knew it. And as with a lot of tunes, it turned out that I knew the A section pretty well, but I wasn't sure about the bridge. So I listened to some recordings and I memorized the song. Now, if you aren't familiar with the tune you're choosing, make a playlist and do some serious listening before you try to learn it. Try to include at least one vocal version, and you really want to have this song in your ear before you get started. The next step is to sing it. It's the only way to be sure that you know the tune. And don't try to do it in your head. When you sing it, it'll reveal if there are any spots that you're unsure about. It'll also work to tighten up your ear, and it makes it easier to learn to play the tune later. So when you sing it the way you want to interpret it, but don't get too carried away with it, because you can and probably will change it later. For now, just go for the basic melody with a really good time feel. So now you actually know the song, and that'll go a long way towards being able to remember it. And when you learn to play it, you won't be hitting play and rewind over and over again, or have to use slowdown software. So now once you're sure you know the song and how you want to play it, you're just about ready to pick up the guitar, but there's still a few other things to do first. Decide if it's in major or minor. Some of you may know this intuitively and you can just move on. But for the rest of you, here's a simple way to find out. Sing the last note or phrase. Do-ba-do-ba-do-do. Hold the last note, and it'll usually be the tonic. So now I'm going to find that note on the guitar, and I knew it was C. And so I'm going to play a major chord using that note as the root. I usually use a sixth chord. Now if that sounds good, and it does, that means you're in major. And if it doesn't, then you're in minor. There are a couple of other things to be aware of. Meter. Unless you're learning take 5, it'll be either in 3 or 4. If you've already figured that out, move on. But if not, play the recording and then try snapping on 2 and 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. If that feels good, you're in 4. If not, you're probably in 3. Snap on the downbeat. 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3. You'll also want to be aware of the form. The most common forms are going to be AABA or ABAC, and sometimes they have a little twist. In Nearness of You, it's in 4, and the form is AABA, but it has a 4-bar extension on the last A. So now with all the prep work done, it's time to learn to play it. You start by playing it in one position. A good melody will have a range of an octave and a fifth or less, so it should fit into your 2-octave scale patterns pretty easily. So to learn the melody, sing each phrase, and then figure out how to play it. Then put it all together. Ba-do-ba-do-da, do-do-da, do-do-da, do-do-do-do, do-ba-do-da, do-ba-do-ba-do-da. could leave it like that, but it doesn't reveal a whole lot about the song. One unique characteristic of the guitar is that there are multiple ways to play any line. Other instruments can't do that, but it also presents a bit of a challenge. At the same time, there's an advantage that musical elements like triads, scales, and intervals have identifiable shapes that are consistent up and down the neck and somewhat across the neck too. This lets us find ways to play the song that reveal a lot about the song and that helps develop the hand-to-ear connection. Every melody is going to have motives that will translate into visual shapes on the guitar. It's what makes a good song. We can take advantage of that. In the Nearness of You, there's a pattern of ascending thirds that move down by step. Do, 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 do. It makes more sense to just move down the neck rather than play those in position. Moving up and down the neck gives you a lot more flexibility on how you choose to articulate the line. In position, you're pretty much stuck with what's available depending on what notes are on what string. But when moving, you can decide how to attack the note, pick it, hammer, pull, slide, so on. And your ear is what will be guiding that. By now, you have the melody in pretty good shape, so now it's time to move on to the chords. The chords are mostly in root position, so the first step is to try to hear the roots and sing them. Now this can be a bit of a challenge at first, especially with walking bass. Don't let it get too frustrating. If you can't find the bass notes, it's time to use the fake book. But when you do, make sure you sing the roots. Now that you know the roots, let's find the chords. Most chords will be diatonic, so the first thing you should do is try a diatonic chord on any diatonic root. Now if the diatonic chord doesn't work, there are a couple of things you can try. If the root is the fourth or the fifth of the scale, try a minor seventh chord. If it's any other diatonic root, try a dominant seventh chord. And if the root is chromatic, try a dominant seventh or a diminished seventh. This will get you most of the way home. And so with the Nearness of You, let's try that. All right, and so in the Nearness of You, the first bass note is a C. And the C major 7 works pretty well there, no surprise. The next note, though, is the 5. That doesn't sound right. Okay? So our first option is to try a minor seventh because it's the fifth of the scale. And you know that sounds pretty good. And then we're back to the root again, the tonic. Well, but the major seventh doesn't make any sense there. So our first option again is the dominant seventh. Well, that sounds pretty good. And then we go to 4. That sounds pretty good. And then our first option, because it's repeating, it's a different chord, so we're going to look for the minor seventh because it's the fourth again. But we may find into a problem. So we're probably going to have to look that one up because we may not know what that is right now. Right? And then we have the 3 chord. And that diatonic sounds okay. That's okay. We'll have to see if we like that for sure, but it'll work. And that's diatonic too. And that's diatonic. And then back to 1. So you can see we've only got 3 chords that are not diatonic in that whole chord progression. Okay, so now we can use the fake book as an answer sheet. You're going to check your melody and your chords against the fake book version. So here are the changes to Nearness of You. And you can see that in the first 4 chords we have are correct. And the chord that we were having questions about, the F minor 7, because of the B natural. What he did is made it a F diminished. That works. Okay. Then we had a 3. That was fine. We said A minor 7 because it was diatonic, but in fact, it's the dominant 7. And then resolving to 1. See if you like the fakebook version better. Most times you will, but occasionally I prefer what I came up with. And be aware that the fakebooks often have mistakes, so you might just be right. Now, if you were completely stumped by a chord, that's okay too. Once you look it up, you'll remember the sound next time. But be sure to try it by ear first. So do you have trouble learning tunes? Are there tunes that you've learned at one time but then forgot how to play them later? Have you ever wondered how some players like Joe Pass seem to know every tune? I can help. Sign up for a free trial lesson and let me show you how. The link is down below in the description. Now, this method at first isn't as easy as learning from a fakebook or a tab. But when you're learning from a fakebook or tab, you learn how to play the song, but you don't really learn the song. You're making a connection between your eyes and your fingers, and the ears are often not really part of the equation. The connection we want to make is between the ears and the fingers. So instead of remembering what it looked like and which buttons your fingers are supposed to push, you remember what it sounded like, and your fingers learn to follow your ear. In the end, learning by ear is going to make you an all-around better musician. Each time you do this, it'll make it easier to learn the next one. When I first started learning tunes by ear, these were the steps I followed. But now I can combine most of the steps, and I can learn a tune in an hour or so, practice it a few days, and be ready to play it on a gig. And that's what happened with Nearness of You. Okay, so now that you know the song, there are a few more things you can do to really make them stick. Now, you don't need to do these all at once, but as you do them, it'll just reinforce your knowledge of the song. So the first thing is learn the melody in different octaves and positions. You learned it in one position, you have at least 3 or 4 other patterns that you can use, and the melody will fit in all of those. And if you're moving up and down the neck, you can just move those onto a different set of strings, and it'll work the same way too. Second thing you can do is learn it in 2 keys. Now, a lot of times you'll hear people tell you to learn everything in 12 keys. Well, one, you don't really have time for that, but it's also not really necessary on a guitar. Because if you can learn it in 2 keys, about a 4th or a 5th apart, you're going to have one set starting on the 6th string, one set starting on the 5th string. And then moving up or down 3 frets, you have all 12 keys. Doing it a 4th or 5th apart can also be useful because female singers in particular are often a 5th away from the fakebook version. The third thing you should do is analyze the chord progressions. Every song will include some common chord progressions that you'll find in other songs. For example, the 2-5-1 that starts off the bridge in Nearness of You. Learning to recognize these progressions will make it a lot easier to learn new songs. And once again, it will strengthen the hand-to-ear connection. Now there's one final thing that you can do to really make it stick, and that's arrange it. You can harmonize the melody with 2 notes or even a chord. You can do a call and response between the melody and the chords. And you can just simply do a chord melody. All of these add a little bit of an extra muscle memory to the whole process. So once you arrange it, it's yours and you'll never forget it. And if you'd like to hear the arrangement that I did for the Nearness of You for solo guitar, sign up for my Patreon group. It's free. The link's down below. So now that you know how to learn a tune and play the head, you might want to learn how to solo over it. Or maybe comp better. So check out these videos.